Thanks so much for joining us. And it sure feels like you're going through a revolution in the auto business right now. From Uber and just ride sharing, that area, to autonomous and driverless cars, to a whole host of technology that's enabling so much in the car today. Tell us how you see things.
Well, as you said, Maria, it's a very exciting time in the auto industry, and we're using this Mobile World Congress. We're introducing our new Ford Kuga, but we're using this Congress again to highlight how we're transforming ourselves from an auto company to an auto and a mobility company, and really embracing that and embracing the technological change, but also at the same time keeping focused on our core business of building great cars and trucks, but also really looking at these mobility options and services going forward and seeing how we can play a part in serving customers' lives with that.
So what kind of practical things should we expect from this car and from what you're churning out in the coming years in terms of mobility and some new features?
Well, in terms of mobility, there's a number of different areas. In connectivity, we're introducing our Sync 3 system here, which is actually the industry's leading communication and entertainment system that actually keeps people connected to their smartphones. From a mobility standpoint, we're doing a number of pilots on car sharing in London and in Germany. Also at the same time, in autonomous vehicles, we're a leader in what we call semi-autonomous technologies or driver assist technologies, things that will keep you in your lane, those type of things. And at the same time, we're doing a lot of research and developing into a fully autonomous vehicle in a defined area. And we've been working at this for quite some time now, and we're continuing to work at that going forward.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the implications of all the information that you're collecting and the data. So stay with me on that. But first, let me get your take on the macro story, because there's a lot of concerns out there that the macro story is just a lot lower and weaker than anybody thought. You've got a flattening yield curve, some modest signs of credit tightening. What are you seeing?
Well, it depends on what part of the world we're looking at. If you look at the U.S., clearly the data is telling us the wage growth, income growth, job growth is continuing to do well. You compare that also with the low energy prices. That's putting a lot of consumer spending, a lot of power with consumers right now. So fairly well in the U.S., of course, we're always on the alert for the downside. And when you marry that with just the age of the car park in the U.S., we think that bodes well for the auto industry going forward, but we'll watch it closely. Europe, we're seeing continued moderate growth. China, we're still seeing growth, particularly in the car industry, but watching it closely. And in South America, clearly continued contraction in the economy and the car business, given the situation down there. So it's a bit of a mixed bag across the world, but overall, we think globally about the same as last year.
Let me get your take on what's going on in terms of the Apple story, Mark, because we're having a real controversy on set this morning. Apple's resistance to the government's push to get around its security. I mean, you're running a company that has now access to all this data and information. If you were in this place, would you let the government see all of that information? If you were asked and got this similar request from the FBI, what would you do?
Well, it's a really important question, Maria, and clearly we don't collect data only if customers opt in and allow us to do that. And our approach as a company, very simply, is we take the security and the privacy of our customers' data very, very seriously. We view customers as owning their own data. We want to be trusted stewards of that, and we're committed to make sure it's protected. And we're watching the situation very closely and what's playing out right now.
Yeah, you're watching the situation, but the fact is we're right now faced with a real dilemma. People do not want government snooping on them. They don't want their civil liberties impacted. But at the same time, this is a situation about national security. When it comes to national security, would you choose a different avenue and say, look, this is about national security. I'm going to have to give this to the government?
Well, as we've done in our business in the past, where we have been asked in certain situations for crashes and things of that nature, where we've been basically from a legal standpoint, asked to give data, we do that. But in this case, in terms of the privacy of data, clearly that's a big issue, and as we said, we're watching the situation closely.
So you don't know. It's case by case is basically what you're saying. You can't, it's not a blanket answer.
It's not a blanket answer because there are different circumstances, but from our standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, we're really committed to making sure that we protect customers' data.
Mark, what's your strategy around Uber? I know that, look, I was talking to Mark Andreessen recently, of course, the big investor in technology companies. He said in the future there are going to be 4 car companies, okay? Apple, Google, Tesla, and Uber. He said those are the... I know Ford, has a different vision in terms of the car companies out there, and obviously you need a manufacturer of cars. But how are you going to handle all of these companies coming from ride-sharing to driverless cars, trying to take your business out?
Well, first off, we're looking at this as a huge opportunity, and I appreciate Mark's view, and he has a certain view of the world. From our standpoint, going forward, we're going to have our core business, which is designing and developing great cars and trucks. And let's face it, Maria, during our lifetime, majority of the population of the world is going to continue to buy and drive and own vehicles the way they've had for many, many years. At the same time, we're also going to see the growth of the access instead of ownership, particularly in urban areas and particularly for millennials. So that's why, as a company, as we transition into an auto and mobility company, we're doing a lot of experiments, particularly around ride sharing and car sharing, and seeing how we can play a part in making people's lives better and help change the way the world moves. So we view it as a big opportunity, lots of competition out there, but we're really looking forward to it.
Where do you think in the world right now is the growth? Where do you want to really expend the resources now, seeing that that's where the car buyers are and the vehicle demand is?
Well, we see growth in a number of different areas. We see moderate growth in the U.S. and in places like Europe. In China, there's been a lot of discussion about what's going on, but when you look at the demographics, clearly as it transitions from an investment and industry-led economy to a consumption one, it doesn't change our long-term view of the prospects for growth there. So China, India, but also at the same time, we see a potential lot of growth in the mobility services area. And how can we have a business model there that allows us to have recurring revenue, which complements our core business and maybe quite possibly be less sensitive to the business cycles?
I guess it's all about technology at that mobile conference in Barcelona right now, Mark. Do you feel that we're going to go into recession in the U.S. this year?
Well, everything that we're looking at in terms of the economic metrics tells us no. But, clearly consumer confidence is a big piece of that. I think we have to be cognizant. Listen, if every day a consumer wakes up and sees all the news from various media outlets that the sky is falling, that could impact consumer confidence, and that could impact the economy, could impact our business.
Yeah.
But right now, we're not seeing the transmission of all the issues we're seeing into consumer confidence, but we're going to watch it very closely.
Mark, good to talk with you.